Interesting.
Within these fraternal orders, which counted George Washington, Benjamin Franklin, and John Hancock among their
Yep.
highest ranks, Sirius is revered under a highly specific title, the Blazing Star.
Interesting.
Historic Masonic Lodge, you will almost invariably find the Blazing Star positioned square and compasses or hanging from the exact center of the ceiling. It is treated as the ultimate source of spiritual light,
True.
of internal illumination,
Mm-hmm.
and the symbolic eye of universal consciousness. The fact that the United States declared its independence on July 4th sits in a direct line of sight with Sirius from the perspective of Earth is one of the most glaring celestial markers in human history. To really gauge the historical continuity here, one must trace how these stellar traditions migrated from the Nile Delta into the heart of enlightenment Europe. The intellectual class of the kingdoms could only survive if they could. Miners of the American did not pull their symbols out of thin air. They inherited a long-running, underground celestial science. When Thomas Jefferson argued for the adoption of a decimal system and a solar calendar, synthetic magic, ritual, birth of a nation with a spiritual and mystery schools. The Declaration of Independence was a talismanic document, precisely within the heat of the heliacal rising of Sirius. This alignment conceptually placed the young republic under real expansion, intellectual illumination, straight into the soil of the new world.
Interesting.
Framed to new wisdom. Vitality, an engine located over 8 light years away. Sirius aligned in the sky. Merged into a concentrated line of of the 18th century to carry an immense internal momentum. It functions like an act of cosmic realism, claiming This alignment explains the
True.
it's through space. It's aligned with its original stellar inspiration. The nation was entirely new. First modern state to implement it on a structural instant. Capitals were constructed to catch the very first ray of a rising star. Serious, animated grand positions of the stars. July returns, cycling that original energy back through the state apparatus and reinforcing its foundational programming. Dashed away secret vaults. It is printed millions of times a day on the most widely circulated piece of currency in human history.
Yep.
The Great Seal of the United States, commissioned by the Continental Congress on the very night of July 4th, 1776. Visions to finalize. The reverse side of this seal features one of the most polarizing and heavily debated symbols in modern iconography. An unfinished pyramid constructed of exactly 13 rows of uniform masonry. Attached capstone containing the Eye of Providence. Standard institutional histories dismiss this as a conventional, generic symbol for God's watchful eye, adopted from common Renaissance art. But when you study its mathematical integration into the seal, a much more complex story emerges. At the very base of the pyramid, to the foundational stone, sits the Roman numeral year 1776. Wrapping around the structure are two highly specific Latin phrases: annuit coeptis, meaning he has favored our undertakings, and novus ordo seclorum, which translates directly to a new order of the ages. This is an explicit declaration of a new
Mhm.
real plane of humanity, built step by step through the centuries. Into the completed picture. To unearth the hidden mechanics of this image, one must look closely at its geometric alignment with classical talismanic design. In traditional Hermetic geometry, an unfinished square pyramid serves as a structural representation before initiation, dense, heavy, and anchored to the base elements of the earth. The separation of the peak indicates that a deliberate spiritual operation must be
Mhm.
apex.
Mhm.
Its becomes
Mhm.
If you draw a hexagram, the interlaced triangles known across antiquity as the Seal of Solomon directly over the pyramid. Letters within the
Mhm.
Latin
Pentagon.
annuit. The vertex points to the enemy novus.
Mhm.
These align perfectly with the letters A, S, and O in the surrounding words. They spell a single, unmistakable word: MASON.
Mhm.
This geometric cryptogram is a deliberate signature left in ink. The exact cultural landscape that the lore of Sirius was originally systemized by embedding 1776 at the base and the which tracks directly back to the light of Sirius. The designers created a highly effective visual talisman. Every single time a dollar bill changes, conscious, acting like that keeps the economic engine of the modern world tethered to the geometry of 1776.
Mhm.
Layers serves as another layer. Neatly represents the 13 separate colonies that rose against the British Crown. Esoterically, however, is historically treated as
Mhm.
information.
Mhm.
Ninth of the zodiac, 12 months in a solar year, 12 tribes of Israel, 12 classical labors of Hercules, surrounding Christ.
Mhm.
Factor. The sun at the center of the zodiacal wheel, the master at the center of the disciples. By building a pyramid of 13 steps, the architects were visually synthesis of all historical experiments that had preceded it, a final project managed from behind the scenes for generations. Attached.
Mhm.
Entirely
Mhm.
represented as transcendent, viewing the light from an elevated geometric vantage point, operating on principles that make tears think a masterpiece of psychological conditioning, a quiet presence,
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
This alchemical blueprint was not restricted to ink, paper, or philosophy. It was physically carved directly into the literal geography. The layout of the nation's capital, Washington, and most complex experiments in 1791. The monumental task of designing the street grid for the federal city. What he produced was completely as a simple commercial layout. Instead of a standard, efficient grid for trade, Lawful engineered an intricate web of precise diagonal intersections.
Very interesting.
Above this civic engine stands the Washington Monument, 5-foot stone obelisk.
Interesting.
Lawful's lane. One must recognize that he was working directly under the supervision of George Washington. Task contract. City. They spent the local meridian. This ensured that the very foundation of the architecture, an obelisk functions as an axis mundi,
Interesting.
designed to bridge the gap between earth and sky, channeling celestial currents down into the physical plane. The placement of this specific obelisk was calculated with precision. Washington Monument on key dates in July and track the alignment of the major avenues directly toward the setting sun and the rising coordinates of Canis Major and its anchor star, Sirius. This highly deliberate geographic orientation was designed to physically manifest a vision published over a century earlier by the statesman and Rosicrucian Grand Master Francis Bacon. In his famous prophetic 1626 text, The New Atlantis, Bacon mapped out a society called Bensalem, an empire across the Western Ocean, entirely of nature and the integration of esoteric science with state government. And literal physical realization of Bacon's New Atlantis. City, they constructed a manic grid. Avenues, the perfectly circular plazas, the precise relation between the executive and legislative seats of power.